This is your before and after story. Prepare for an incredible career in nursing. At Southeastern College, experience expert hands-on training. Learn real-world skills in our professional lab and simulated settings. And train for opportunities as a practical nurse, registered nurse, or career advancement with our RN to BSN program. At Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sac.edu to get started.
Gather round, everyone, and prepare to be swept away by the thrilling exploits of Gino Cuddy, Clive Davis, and Nick Sheehan as they embark on a daring journey across the silent screen. They'll ride through the annals of film history, recounting the captivating saga of the silver screen's very first Western superstar. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Hart to Hart, the William S. Hart podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Gino Cuddy, and I'd like to welcome you to episode number 2 of Hart to Hart, William S. Hart podcast. And as always, I am joined by my co-hosts, Clive Davis and Nick Sheehan. And today we're going to be discussing four.
Can I just interrupt you there, Gino? I'm going to say you're not going to hear much of my voice in this episode because I've decided to change my name to Mr. Silent Clive Davis. And I'm just going to sit here and look on.
Now, Clive, this is mostly an audio podcast, so that is going to mean your contributions will be pretty thin because we won't be able to see your hands.
Yes, well, this is why I thought I'd bring it up, right? So just so people think I'm not being lazy. I'm just being in character. Yeah.
So
Clive. Go on, Gino.
So we're going to be discussing some short films. Our previous episode, we reviewed The Bargain from 1914 and On the Night Stage from 1915. And there were some films that preceded the films that we're going to be discussing tonight that we don't have access to. And those are The Passing of Two Gun Hicks, In the Sagebrush Country, and The Scourge of the Desert. We don't have access to any of those films. They could very well exist, but they're probably currently locked up in film archives, and that's what's going to lead me to what I'm going to discuss later on during the program. So the films that we're going to be discussing tonight are Mr. Silent Haskins, The Sheriff's Streak of Yellow, The Taking of Luke McVane, and Bad Buck of Santa Ynez. These are 4 short films that William S. Hart directed and starred in, and they were produced alongside Thomas H. Ince. Now, let's get into the first film, Mr. Silent Haskins.
I have a question, Gino.
Okay.
On the Night Stage was 1915, right?
Correct.
And when in the year was it released? Do you remember?
Not exactly. I forgot to write that down. That was before I started writing down notes and had a designated notebook as I presented to you blokes.
Right.
The
reason I bring it up,
stage here.
The reason I bring it up, I was just wondering, with at least the first 2 here being released slap bang at the beginning of the year, more or less in February, and might, potentially have been shot in 1914 even. I was wondering if they came like between The Bargain and On the Night Stage in terms of release order, or
that's interesting that you bring that up. As we mentioned during the last episode, we are at least, for this purpose, we are going by the order presented in the book, The Complete Films of William S. Hart, a Pictorial Record, by Diane Kaiser-Kozarski. And her book presents A Bargain, On the Night Stage, and then these 4 short films.
Okay.
So that's the order that we're going in. IMDb and other sources, Letterboxd may differ from that with which is presented in her book. But I've decided, go by the book,
Oh, no,
literally
that's
and
fair enough.
figuratively
It's
here.
just plus as well, production order may differ from broadcast order, right? I mean,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
instance, fans of the original Star Trek like to argue endlessly about which order you should watch the episodes in and stuff like that, right? Because some were shot in a different order from broadcast, and The Prisoner as well, similarly. Um, anyway, no, I just
I
thought I
feel
was
like
just
this is something
wondering.
that you worry about, Clive, more than most people. This is
This
come
could
up
be
many
true.
times over the years with us. Yeah, you were very concerned about when exactly things were released, but I think most of us not that concerned.
Most of you are lazy. Yes, that's
I
right.
see. I,
Yes.
yeah. Anyway, yeah. Knowing that Mr. Silent Haskins may or may not have been released before, it doesn't it affect my enjoyment of it in any way, shape, or form. Um, but anyway, what did blow me away is that Mr. Silent Haskins. I'm right in thinking this is the one that's been cut down to like a one reeler, right? That this was a
Yes, yes. So
right.
let's get into some of the details before we get into our review
Okay.
proper.
It's also,
Mr.
is it the first one, not the first one he directed, but is it the first one we've got to that he's directed, I think, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Right.
So Mr. Silent Haskins was released on February 19th, 1915, and all these films were produced by the New York Motion Picture Company under the supervision of Thomas H. Ince. All four films were directed by William S. Hart. Mr. Silent Haskins has story and screenplay by C. Gardner Sullivan and Thomas H. Ince. The assistant director was Cliff Smith, and this was distributed by Mutual under the KB banner. The cast consists of Silent Lon Haskins being played by William S. Hart, Priscilla Miller being portrayed by Rhea Mitchell, and Jim Black being portrayed by J. Barney Sherry. And Rhea Mitchell and J. Barney Sherry were, I believe, in two of the previous films that we discussed. J. Barney Sherry portrayed the father of Claire Williams' character in The Bargain, and Rhea Mitchell, I believe, was in the succeeding film On the Night Stage as uh, Texas Smith's girlfriend that eventually married the sky pilot. So let's break down the plot here. Silent Haskins is the manager of the Gem Saloon and dance/gambling hall. He welcomes the new owner, Priscilla Miller, who inherited it from her uncle. She demands, after seeing all the raucous behavior going on in the saloon, she demands its immediate closure. And the townspeople don't like this very much, so they wind up getting in touch with professional gambler Jim Black to marry her and take control of the saloon. But Haskins doesn't take too kindly to this, and so he challenges Black to a game, to a gambling game, and they play cards in order to decide who's going to get the girl in the saloon. And of course, William S. Hart being our hero wins. And towards the end of the film, the two, Haskins and Miller, embrace. And Nick made a point earlier that this was originally a two-reeler. However, the version that we viewed, all of the films, with the exception of one, come from my Grapevine video collection, and I must give a tip of the hat to the Hardy brothers, Jack and I believe Jason Hardy of Grapevine Video, because their DVDs were quite well presented for the films that we discussed, and I love the musical accompaniment for these films. So this was originally a two-reeler, but I guess at some point when this was reissued under the title of Dealing for Daisy, this was cut down to 10 minutes. And there, unfortunately, was some plot that was excised from this. Some plot elements, including Priscilla leaving for home and writing a letter to Haskins, and Haskins galloping after the stage and grabbing Priscilla and riding off to see a minister. None of that survives in the version that we watched tonight. And Unfortunately, I could not find the full 20-minute two-reeler anywhere. It may very well exist, but I certainly couldn't find a copy of it. So, what did you, before I get into my thoughts, I'm going to give you guys a chance at the mic here. What did you guys think of Mr. Silent Haskins?
Well, just before we get into opinions, I have a quick question about this two-reeler, one-reeler business, right? Because usually a two, like the others we'll be talking about, run just north of 20 minutes or something like that, right? Which is, I mean, I can't imagine even back in the day of the Nickelodeons, people are not gonna pay good money for much shorter than that, right? So when something is, because I'm assuming, because it makes sense, right? It makes sense. It's not like suddenly there's an abrupt cut and we don't understand what's happening. It's deliberately being cut down to be a one reeler as opposed to a. So what would be the utility of that? Like, in what instance would they show a one reeler as opposed to a two reeler? Would it have been on a program with other things, or is it for
Yeah,
like television filler or something? Or
yeah, I'm tending to think that that the version that we have was probably either for a cut down reissue, or I'm actually more leaning towards this print that we saw was a cut down for the film rental market years later. So that's what I'm thinking. But that's all speculation, and I don't want to say that anything that I'm saying is the bona fide truth, but it's just, my speculation on that.
right, because I'm just wondering, like, if it was the early film rental market, like you'd get, for instance, the Universal horrors like cut down, but they would have run longer than, like, they would have had the capacity to mail out longer. So it just seems like a very, like, how short do you want it? Do you know what I mean? It just seems like I'm wondering what commercial imperative would demand something being cut down from a two reeler to a one reeler. Like, I understand, like, I don't know, 120-minute film being cut for commercials in a 120-minute slot, cut it down to I understand, like, but I was just trying to figure out, it just seems like an odd thing to do, to cut something down in half. So I'm wondering what specifically it was. If we don't know, we don't know, but I was just wondering if anyone had any
I mean, it
thoughts.
does raise the whole connected question too of how challenging it must have been to be a film, to show films, right? Because you're constantly being sold things that you're not 100% sure if you've bought them already, right? Because they've been retitled. This is that whole thing that kind of fascinates me, is that, yeah, you just, like, people who are showing films in their cinemas, it's very easy to rent or to get something from a distributor that you thought is new, but turns out to be something that you've actually had 2 years before under a different title.
Yeah, I mean, for example, from an area of slightly different interest, at the SNA Studios, founded by George Spohr and Bronco Billy Anderson, did very much the same thing with the Charlie Chaplin films. Like, once Chaplin got fed up and left SNA, Anderson and Spohr got together whatever footage they had of Chaplin and re-edited it and re-released it as a brand new Chaplin film. And, like, that's especially evident with a couple of films that Chaplin made. Originally a two-reeler, SNA wound up reissuing the film A Burlesque on Carmen as a padded four-reeler with unconnected footage of Ben Turpin as a gypsy, for example. And then, probably the more infamous example is the film Triple Trouble, which wasn't even a Chaplin film. They basically took, like, scraps from an unmade and unreleased feature film that he was going to make called Life, and outtakes from a film called Police, and unrelated footage that they newly shot for this film, and released it as Triple Trouble. And that's why Chaplin eventually got fed up and gained control of his own films from that point forward.
Well, that's some
And
OG Godfrey Ho stuff there, right? That's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I guess you could
Um,
say that, yes.
but the funny thing about this film to me is actually I don't feel. I mean, it's hard to see. It's hard to say because I haven't seen the two-reeler version, but I don't feel it seems to lose much. In fact, I quite like
oh,
it. 10-minute running time is kind of perfect. Like it gets in. It somehow manages to tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in a way, I was reading somebody else's review of it online, and they were kind of saying that in a way. Like almost like it's a needless complication to have her miss the message and then leave and then come back.
right,
In a
right.
way, it's almost better that she just kind of goes like, "Oh, you won me in a poker game? Great, let's get married." Like it's kind of it almost gives her more agency in a way that she just rolls with the situation. So I quite
Removing a trimming the fat, so to speak.
yeah, I quite like that this is so lean, but it still manages to tell a story.
I
Um,
don't think you'd ever guess, right, if you didn't know that it was a cut down, abbreviated version. I wouldn't have guessed, and I would have just accepted it for what it was.
mhm.
Right. I mean, when it wasn't until I read the description in the Kozarski book later that I was like, I didn't remember a lot of this from the film, and oh, it was originally a two-reeler. Okay. So yeah, you really don't miss much. I mean, of course, it's sad that that footage was excised, and I don't know where that footage wound up if it even still survives. But you really don't miss too much of the central plot of the film from seeing it in this shortened, or some people would even go so far as to say butchered version.
Right. I
Um,
do like too how William S. Hart, like right from the get-go, she walks in and he's right away, he's like almost like, I'm gonna protect you, lady. Like he's literally pushing people around and like he knocks a guy out who kind of gets fresh right away. He's like, wow, he comes on strong and fast, setting himself up as a kind of like her protector, right? And again, it's another one of these like good guy, sorry, bad guy kind of goes good in a way. Like you get the sense right away that he's a rough and tumble, slightly scary guy, and yet again, the love of a good woman or whatever manages to kind of turn him around, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, so you were asking on of opinions. I mean, we'll talk about Sheriff Streak of Yellow next, and for me, that's the pick of the bunch here. And these other three, they're a little, they kind of bleed together a little bit for me. I feel as if they're like kind of one slightly long feature with a very repetitive nature, and it's very difficult to judge this. I mean, by the time it started, it's finished, because of the one reeler thing, and I mean, things have happened. It doesn't seem to have. I mean, it does have like there's some scenes of like a posse galloping off and stuff like that, and it has cinematic flair and all that. But I feel this would be a very hard sell for anyone other than three people doing a completist William Hess Hart podcast. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
it's it's like it's fairly on the periphery. I think for nothing wrong with it, but I don't know if it has an utility anymore, really.
Right,
Anyway,
right.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
It's interesting though that I'm gonna to disagree with you, and I'm gonna argue that the Taking of Luke McVane was actually the one that I liked the most when we get to it, because
Okay.
I thought that ending was chef's kiss. Um, I really liked where that went. I did not expect it to go where it goes. But to your point, I can see that. But again, like at 10 minutes, how can this thing overstay its welcome? To me,
Well,
it was,
exactly. So there's
it
that as
was,
well. It's not like damn, I wasted a whole 10 minutes there. It's like,
it's brisk and breezy, and I always like a good poker game in a Western. And it's interesting how early some of these tropes, like how far they go back, right? I mean, this is really the beginnings of the Western, and we already have this, two guys facing off in the saloon, with the crooked, the guy with the doesn't he has a little drawer, right, or something like that where he has extra cards inside the table, I think, and that's how he's cheating, right?
No, I think the
Oh no,
draw you're talking
I'm
about.
sorry, I'm mixing it up. That's in a later film.
Luke
Yes, because
McVane. Yes, yes,
I
yes,
Taking
like
of
the
yes.
Luke McVane,
little
which, as I
draw.
told
I
you, I
like the
like so
little
much,
draw as well.
I'm
Yes, I like a
misremembering it.
little draw in a film. Yeah,
Yes. Um, but
because it
yeah,
seems as well like it's a nice little cinematic device, but at the same time, it seems like a very obvious way of cheating. Like if you're in the room, and also when he made this table made with a little draw in it, people might be thinking, "What's that little draw for?" Then but it's a nice little cinematic device. Yeah.
um, and again, I did like the fact that like um, yeah, you could tell that this was a proper kind of borderline brothel sort of a place. Although not so much from what you're told in the title cards, but just from the imagery we're shown. Right, we can see that she is quite shocked when she goes in and realizes, oh, apparently I've inherited some sort of yeah
You should see
knocking.
the Joe D'Amato edit.
Yeah, which just somehow has 90 extra minutes of footage in it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
would have blown the walls off back in the day.
Yourself, Gino, what did you think about Mr. Silent?
Well, like Clive, I thought, this was good. I mean, I don't think, I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think William S. Hart really ever made a bad movie, but this was sort of like just there. It was just, something to watch. It's not it's not something you absolutely need to go out and see. But if I think that I'll sum it up by saying this. It's integral to watch if you're doing a project like we're doing, but it's inessential, you know? I mean, it's enjoyable, but it's inessential. I mean, suffice it to say, I had a lot of fun watching all four of these, but there were some that I enjoyed more than others, certainly. And this was, I think, one of the weaker of the films that we saw. And again, we are viewing it from a disadvantage, me being that we are watching a cut down version of it. But I still think that even if we were to watch the full length version of this, I think it would still be somewhere in the middle to the lower end of the spectrum in his filmography.
So here's something. Did we talk about this last time? About so when reading this time, I didn't realize, that he's pushing 50 at the very beginning of his film career. For one reason that he actually like I have an image, and it's partly to do with my own grandparents of people, who are old before now, looking older. Like when I see pictures of my grandfather when he's in his 50s, he looks more like he's in his like somebody now would be in their 70s or their 80s, almost. And he doesn't, to me, like these films were made in 1915, and he's a man who's about 50 years old. He doesn't look anywhere near 50 to me. Or maybe I'm just maybe a little.
Yeah, I mean, that that's very much true. He does look really young in these. I'm not sure if it's the makeup that he's wearing, but he does look quite young in a lot of these. And like if as we progress, he's like to compare him to somebody in professional wrestling, he's like Sergeant Slaughter. He never gets older. You
Right,
know, it's like
right.
he always looks the same age no matter what film he's in.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Um,
he doesn't move like again like if you think 50 in 1915 in my imagination, that's an old man. He doesn't move
yeah.
like an old man. He doesn't act like an old man. There's nothing. Yeah. Anyway, it's
Yeah, well, you're not seeing this necessarily in the highest of definition
fair
either as
enough.
well, right? That
Right.
masks a lot of wrinkles and shit as well, I think. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps, but I don't know. The man looks good for 50. I'm
Yeah,
50.
yeah, but he doesn't look old, but he looks weathered, I would
Yes.
say. He does look weathered. But
Yes.
that's
Which fits
perfect for
the type. Yeah.
the Western hero look, I think. I don't think you want a like young guns. You don't want pretty
Emilio
boy
Estevez.
Western
Yes.
heroes, right? Really.
Lou Diamond Phillips. But
Even
I
even
wanted to
Billy
see
the
that.
Kid should look a little bit, weather beaten, I think.
Right. But it is funny because actually, in some of the later shorts, there are some of the actors, like some of the cowboys, who do look who do look like they're kind of in their late teens, early 20s, and it kind of, in a way, it did push me out a little bit, because like, oh, that guy looks really young. But I suppose there must have been young cowboys. There must have been cowboys who were 19, 20.
So have we said our piece about Mr. Silent Haskins?
I think so.
I believe so. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to The Sheriff's Streak of Yellow, which was released on February 26, 1915. And this was in production between December 3rd to December 10th, 1914. And I actually have...
Wow.
Yeah. And the production cost was $1,122.36, which in 2025 dollars would be $36,202.96.
Okay.
So modest budget for these films. Again, directed by William S. Hart, story and screenplay by Richard V. Spencer and Thomas H. Ince, and photographed by Robert Doran. The cast consists of William S. Hart as Sheriff Hale, Jack Nelson as Bill Todd, Gertrude Clare as Mom Todd, and Bob Russell as Jennings. And the plot of this film is Sheriff Hale is charged with the task of arresting outlaw Bill Todd. Hale gets the drop on Todd, but recognizes him as the son of a woman who saved his life. Hale lets Todd go free to the chagrin of the town, who calls for his resignation. Todd later returns to town to rob a bank and is foiled by Hale, who kills him, thus winning back his job. Now, what did we think of The Sheriff's Streak of Yellow?
Well, we should mention as well that we watched the version rescued by the Danish Film Institute, right?
Yes.
Which runs 23 minutes and has the tinting,
Actually, both
yellow
versions,
tinting.
funnily enough, have the tinting. The other one that Gino shared with us also is
okay.
as well. It's just not as clear. This print has got more of the details still in it. But yeah, interesting enough, I'm guessing that maybe is the only way the film was released. Was maybe it was always released tinted, which is quite nice because all the daytime scenes are tinted in yellow, and then when we get to nighttime scenes, it tints to blue instead.
I have to say that Mom Todd is a rather lazy character name, right? They could have at least come up with a first name for her beyond Mom. Right?
Mom Todd.
Yeah.
Well, Clive, you were saying that this was your favorite of them, so maybe you should
This was the one that felt most like a complete film with a story arc that kind of it felt like a proper meal of a film, if you see what I mean. Like the other ones are a little bit more something that was made to fill a production schedule, if you see what I mean.
So if we're going to stick with the food, are you thinking undercooked as opposed to no?
Anyway, so but what I mean is, so you have the whole thing about people thinking the sheriff's yellow, but it's and then by the time we get to
and crooked as well. I think it's important that they also think he's on the take.
Crooked, and there's some safecraft cracking going on, some goal, and I know it just all felt like quite it mounted nicely. It had the pacing was nice, and then the ending is kind of a little bit more tragic than is usual as well. It's not just I got you or something like that. Spoiler alert, the fact that someone being coerced into a suicide rather than kind of just giving themselves up or just shooting someone dead, or I don't know, it had a real sense of like a tragedy or something about it, right? And no one's I thought from that title, the William S. Hart hero, but it's not that simple. It's not just someone it's more of the events that happen are beyond William S. Hart's he's almost just another character, rather than the hero of the piece. So it was quite interesting for me. I think this is the first. We'll probably talk about this more as the project develops, but obviously William S. Hart was quite interested in, branching out and bringing a bit more to the genre, and rather than just because already from the get-go we've seen him switch sides, black hat, white hat, or whatever, and this is something else again. This is neither. This is just like
Neutral.
there are no black or white yellow hats. I guess it's all yellow hats or gray hats or whatever, right? So yeah, just for me, maybe so far, this is the first film I think that I've seen that we watched so far, including the last two features, that was like, this might be like if I were to put together a William S. Hart retrospective, or this is probably the first one we watched, which I think, this is an important piece of the jigsaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eloquent. Yeah, I see your point, and I also
You just called me an elephant.
I did, yes. No,
okay.
I did not. So yeah, no, I was thinking I quite like the flashback as well, because again, like how far back does the flashback go as a convention of cinema?
Earlier, but still, it's still fairly, it's a new, relatively new tool, I think.
Right. Because we do see, so it's not just that we're told that at one point, the sheriff was dying of dehydration out in the desert and was rescued by the criminal's mom, but we actually see it all enacted, which, it lends a bit more weight then to her. And we also, as you were saying, there's more nuance, right? Our bad guy, Bill Todd, we were introduced to him with him taking care of his dying mother. Like that's really, we don't see him robbing anyone or anything at the very beginning of the film, right? We're introduced to him in this kind of a moment of him, being a caregiver, right? So yeah, it's interesting. The film does play more. You're right, with certain shades of gray than you might expect again.
And you're talking about Bill Todd, and while I was watching this, and I saw the name Jack Nelson in the credits and whatever, and for some reason that name just jogged something in me. So I went and looked on his IMDb page, and so I actually wrote this down in my notes that Jack Nelson was not only an actor, but he was also a director of westerns and lower budgeted B westerns specifically. And two of the westerns that he directed were the notorious The Border Menace that he produced alongside the equally as notorious Robert J. Horner. This is the film where Bill Cody is partnered up with the horrible, overacting Jimmy Aubrey, silent film comedian. And if that wasn't bad enough, he also directed the Victor Adamson film, The Rawhide Terror. This was the infamous film where that originally started out as a cliffhanger serial, but they ran out of money halfway through, so they decided to throw together all the footage that they had shot and turn it out as a feature. And doesn't really make that much sense and is not really that entertaining, but there you go.
Just in case you don't know, Nick, or anyone listening, I know Gino knows, but Vic Adamson is, of course, Al Adamson's dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's quite a legacy there.
Yeah.
And his last directorial credit was uncredited, which was, I believe, the 1935 film The Shadow of Silk Lennox with Lon Chaney Jr. So quite a pedigree for Jack Nelson here. So yeah, that was a name that I've seen this name before, and sure enough. So as far as my thoughts on Sheriff Shrieky Yellow, I like this movie a lot more than Mr. Silent Haskins. I mean, of course, considering that we have the full-length film. I did like this one a lot better. There was a lot of pathos in this with, the whole thing about paying a debt, being a theme in this with, the mother of Bill Todd saving William S. Hart, and then William S. Hart, unfortunately, having to do in Bill Todd at the end. So he, is also paying the debt back. So yeah, really a dark, sad, tragic Western film, and a lot of these, do turn out to be that way. As far as my favorite of the films that we're going to be discussing here, this was actually not my favorite. I did like it, but I liked it better than Silent Haskins, but the next two films that we're going to be discussing I liked a lot better. Any more thoughts on Sheriff Striggiello?
No, not really. I think, yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next film, which is The Taking of Luke McVane. And there were two films that preceded this that, unfortunately, again, we don't have access to. And those were The Grudge and The Roughneck. But apparently, The Roughneck is in the collection of the Library of Congress. So towards the end of this program, I'm going to be discussing a way that you could donate to the program, and so that maybe we could acquire a copy of that film to review potentially in the future. The Taking of Luke McVane was released April 16th.
Hang on, Gino. Just so I understand exactly what you're saying there. Are you saying this is the third of a trilogy?
No. There were two films that preceded this in his filmography.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I do apologize. I got you. Right.
Okay, so The Taking of Luke McVane was released April 16th, 1915. And it was in production between January 17th to February 1st, 1915, directed by William S. Hart, with a story and screenplay by Richard V. Spencer and Thomas H. Ince. And the production cost was more than the previous film. This cost $2,306.71, which in 2025 dollars is $73,668.78. And the cast consists of William S. Hart playing Luke McVane, Enid Markey playing Mercedes, Clifford S. Smith playing Deputy Jim Daly, S. C. Smith as Crooked Jim Ashley, and Ernest Swallow as Garcia. And the plot of this film is, after being swindled in a card game by Crooked Jim Ashley, Luke McVane shoots and kills him and escapes the law. The sheriff charges after, along with...
This is where the little draw comes in as well.
Yeah, this is, yes.
Yes. He escapes the law. The sheriff charges after, along with a posse, but Mercedes, a dance hall girl who is in love with McVane after being saved from a rapist earlier in the film, diverts the posse's trail. The sheriff catches McVane, but McVane shoots him. And feeling guilty about doing so, McVane takes the sheriff back to his house to nurse him and treat him. Seeing this change of heart, the sheriff promises to drop all charges against McVane. And on their way back to town, they are ambushed by Indians, and after a hard-fought battle, both are unfortunately killed. So this is quite a dark ending for a film of this sort in 1915. But William S. Hart's films often don't have happy endings. I like this film. This and the next film, I think, were it's neck and neck which one I like the best. But the grisly image of the sheriff and McVane just piled on top of each other, completely dead out there in the desert. What a grisly, tragic, sad image that is. Actually, thinking about it now, it actually puts me in mind of the ending of Louis Buñuel's Un Chien Andalou, when the woman and her boyfriend on the beach are found buried to the neck up at the beach in spring, as the title card says in that film. Yeah, I like this film. This is where, in his filmography and his shorts, I mean, I like The Bargain, which we reviewed in the previous episode, but this is where his films start getting a little bit more interesting and a little bit more tasty, if you will. Um, so, so yeah. Your thoughts, fellas?
Well, for me, and I'm not going to surprise anybody in this room by bringing up spaghetti westerns, but this is where I really see the DNA of the spaghetti western. Like we open up in a saloon that's got a bunch of kind of scary looking, Mexican kind of muchacho kind of dudes, right? And then we get this ending which to me is straight out of like The Great Silence or something like that. Like a really unexpected, like, oh, okay, what? Because I don't know if you know about when The Great Silence was released, which is a '60s spaghetti western made by Sergio Corbucci. At the end, huge spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen the film. So if you want to see it, go see it now and then come back. Yeah, our hero, who is mute, hence the name Silence, he's killed by the bad guys who kind of, and that's it. It's a very downbeat ending. And at the time it was released, famously in Sicily, members of the audience were so enraged they jumped out of their seats and fired guns at the screen.
Should say, without getting into further spoilers,
Yeah,
I mean, you say the hero dies at the end. That's not quite explaining exactly how fucking
how brutal
brutal
it
the
is.
ending
Yeah,
of
it's
that film is.
very grim.
Yeah,
And it's yeah, but anyway, but so I was very surprised by where this film goes. I really sat up and took notice because at one point I was like, how are they writing themselves out of this? Because they have this scene where our Apache warriors are kind of doing this circle thing where they're riding around our two main characters, right, and firing at them. I'm thinking, well, they can't. Like, this is going to be very unrealistic if they get out of this. And then they don't. And I was like, oh, okay. Well played, movie. I was not expecting you to go there. Um, so, so yeah, no, I quite like that all. I will say, though, for people who are interested in uh, the indigenous side of things, there is a 1930s silent film called The Silent Enemy, which is all about Ojibwe indigenous people facing off against basically it's kind of pre-contact, so there aren't any Caucasian characters in the film, and it was done kind of with the cooperation of Ojibwe people, um, and it's all about basically a famine, and it's a really interesting film. I would recommend. It's an interesting thing to kind of pair with some of these things to see, another view of indigenous people that early, that where they're not quite so terrifying as they are in this, right? Where they've just kind of jumped their reservation and are on the, um, yeah, they massacre everyone at the end. But but Gino, is there a reason that you haven't mentioned who Mercedes is played by? Because
Oh, I did. She's played by Enid Markey.
yeah, but who she is? That she's Barney Fife's landlady in the Andy Griffith show.
Oh my God. Wow, what a connection.
Yeah, so that came up when I was reading about this. Yeah, so she's the one who won't let him like make chili and beans in his room and
Yes, in the episode Up in Barney's Room. That's
yeah,
right. That's right. Oh my God, that's
that's her.
great.
That's her. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm a big Andy Griffith
I
fan.
know you are. That's
So
why
that blows
I
me
thought
away. Thank you.
okay.
forgive my lack of surprise. I don't think I've ever seen an Andy Griffith show in my life, so I don't. I have no context.
You know who Ron Howard is though, right?
I do.
Okay, well there you go. That's Ron Howard. That was pretty much his first before Happy Days. That was his first big role was playing Andy Griffith's son,
Was that before
Opie.
or after 5 Minutes to Live?
That I don't know.
Ah,
But he's
that's a good film with a young Ron Howard and Johnny Cash as a killer. It's also
okay.
known as Door-to-Door Killer. Yeah.
Okay. I'll add that to my to get to
So
this.
hang on. So Andy Griffith is sorry to derail. Andy Griffith. I always, for some reason, without having ever seen Andy Griffith, my image was Andy Griffith was an old man. But you're saying Andy Griffith is a child.
No, 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 no. He plays the dad. He plays Ron Howard's dad in this
Ah, okay.
in the TV series.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Is this something because growing up, in the 80s or whatever in the UK, we would have backed up like American sitcom content going back. But I don't ever remember Andy Griffith turning up on British TV screens. Did you
No,
see it? No.
no. I think I would have seen it after I moved to Canada. It's one of those
That'll be
things.
why I'm not familiar with it
Yeah,
then.
but you did see Happy Days though, so I think they only went back a certain like so we
Wait, is
saw
Andy Griffith, is it in color or is it black and
no, it's
white?
black and white, so it's before
Ah,
Happy
that's
Days.
Episodes
probably
are in
why then.
black and white. The bad episodes are in color. So if you want
Right.
a good divining rod, like the color episodes, I mean, if you're an Andy Griffith completist, yes, watch the color episodes. But I have to say this: Jack Burns as Warren Ferguson is no Don Knotts as Barney Fife. So I'm just prefacing that. But to get back on topic, Clive, your thoughts on the Taking of Luke McVane?
Oh well, it's interesting. The stuff you were saying about the ending and all that. Yes, absolutely. But I think the thing that differentiates it from for me, the superiority of Sheriff Streak of Yellow, I think, is that it is true it has that grim ending and all of that, but preceding it, it's kind of tacked on to a story which we've already seen, if you see what I mean. What I liked about Sheriff Streak of Yellow was the whole thing felt kind of fresh, whereas this it was just the denouement was kind of different, but the stuff preceding it was like I said, it's not bad or anything. I didn't have a problem with it, but it's like yeah, it's just if we are going to look at this stuff in detail and kind of stratify it, um, like I said, thus far for me, there's one definite put that in the canon, and that's Sheriff Streak of Yellow, and then the other stuff is yeah, like you were saying earlier, Gina, I've yet to see anything like truly awful or
Yeah.
boring or anything like that, which is good. But it's yeah, it has notable aspects, I suppose. But it's not one of the canon in the same way as Sheriff Streak of Yellow. Maybe because I saw it first as well. Watched them out of order. It kind of cast a bit of a shadow across the other three.
Okay. But yeah, I disagree in as much as for me this one goes in my so far. If I was gonna to pull one out and say this is the one that goes in my list, it's this one I think because I'm a sucker for the unexpected downbeat ending. I'm always going to be happy and even more of a sucker for it when it comes earlier than I expect it to be. It's one thing for that to show up in the 60s. It's another thing for it to show up in 1915. So, a good time was had by Nick.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess that wraps up the Taking of Luke McVane. Now we get to our final film in this, at least in this review cycle, and that is Bad Buck of Santa Ynez, which was released May 21st, 1915, directed by William S. Hart with a story and screenplay by J.G. Hawkes and Thomas H. Ince. This was preceded by a film that we don't have access to, which was called The Man from Nowhere, which I believe is stored in the George Eastman house, which, again, if I'll mention towards the end of the program, a way that we could possibly acquire a copy of that. But anyway, in the cast is William S. Hart as Bad Buck Peters, Fanny Midgley as Mary Gale, and Thelma Salter as Little Honeygale. And I do have to note that playing the sheriff in this film is none other than Bob Cortman. And Bob Cortman is a familiar face in a lot of westerns of this time period and later on. He's the guy that looks like somebody just took a football and punched it and deflated it. He had that very recognizable face that always lent itself to either henchmen or other villains. And so that's why I was quite surprised in this to see him playing I guess you would even term him a good guy in this.
Yeah, I was surprised
so it
because
was really surprising playing against type.
his physiology is almost, not to be cruel or anything to the man, but it's almost Rondo Hatton level, isn't it? Like he
Yes.
looks pretty odd, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the plot of this film is after humiliating the sheriff once too often, the sheriff decides to arrest and hang local ruffian Bad Buck Peters. Peters escapes and during his ride out of town stumbles upon a desperate mother and her young daughter who plead with Peters to help bury their dead father. Peters reluctantly agrees and takes a liking to the pair. Peters invites the two to stay at his shack while he evades the law. He carves a doll for the little girl while she goes to gather water where she is bitten by a snake, and Peters risks his life riding to town for a doctor. While on the way back to his shack, the sheriff shoots him, and he struggles and staggers to return to the little girl and dies trying to save her. So, I'm not gonna lie. Taking of Luke McVane, and especially this film, especially considering that there's a child in it, and the love he shows the little girl in this. I'm not gonna lie, it got me almost a little choked up. So again, these last two films here are my favorites of the ones that we're reviewing tonight. I know Clive has his reservations, and I respect his opinions and everything else, but I do think that these were the two best films of this review cycle tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind. I like the first half of the Bad Book. I kind of preferred William S. Hart when he's just a total jerk for no good reason, like showing up at the saloon and like forcing the sheriff to drink at gunpoint. He just seems like such a frat boy, like idiot. Like what a weird, like pointless thing to do. And then, I mean, obviously, we definitely, and I do have a thing. I appreciate melodrama as well, but sometimes. Like this was pushing my buttons a little bit too hard. I felt like the
Yeah.
cute
That was my
kid
problem with it as well,
and
was the
stuff.
whole child in peril
But I
thing.
didn't mind.
Yeah.
I didn't mind her being bitten by the snake. In fact, I thought that was all handled quite well. Her mom seemed really useless, I have to say. I was like, she's not like what She runs in like the mom clearly doesn't attempt to do anything to help out. So like she kind of just waits there in a panic until William S. Hart comes in and actually does the sucking out the poison and the rest of it. But yeah, the ending of it definitely lays it on quite thick, which again, depending on how you like your melodrama, that can work really well, or it can be a little bit of a block. And but yeah, I really enjoyed the first three quarters, and then they lost me a little bit. Although again, I appreciated the fact that once again, spoiler, but that this is the second film in a row that we watched where William S. Hart doesn't come out alive. So that's, again, anything that plays against that, my expectation of the hero or whatever, kind of getting to walk off into the sunset, and I'm always going to appreciate. Um, oh damn it! There was one other thing. I will come back, but there was one other thing I wanted to say.
You do sound, I know what you mean, but it's funny when you say things like that out loud, you do start to sound borderline sociopathic. I love it when people get killed
But at the end of it,
and endings aren't happy and it's horrible. And I'm in my element.
well, no. Let me explain.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
No,
I agree with you.
I
There.
think
But it
it's
just
got
when
to
you
do-
say it out loud, it sounds very.
No, I agree. But
strange.
when you grow up and you watch predominantly, I think, um, culture that comes from either like the US, Canada, or Europe, the tendency is towards a happy ending, right? And the big surprise for me was in my later teenage years and 20s was starting to see more films from Asia, more films from, I mean, Italy as well to some degree, where
Did
they
you not
define.
watch Kes as a child?
Oh yeah, I know. There is some depressing. Yeah, there's some awfully depressing English cinema as well. But the vast majority of what we take in does tend to skew for obvious reasons. People are satisfied. People want happy endings. I get it. But when you've seen them so
But
many,
not me, because I hate people.
but no, but it's like the shock of the new. It's like I didn't see that coming at all. And that always, no matter how many times I get, it shouldn't be new to me now. I've actively sought after films that have a bummer
Yes.
ending.
You'd think you'd like a surprise ending now for a nice change of pace.
Happy, yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. Anyway, I promise I'm not wishing death upon anyone, Clive, or Gino. I promise you guys. I'm a I'm a nice guy. Um, hang on. Anyway, feel free. Did you want to add anything, Clive? When I'm trying to remember what I wanted to say.
Well, no, I think we're no, I think that's about it, really. I mean, like I said, my main thing is and again, this is slightly unfair, but as soon as you start dragging kids into things, I start to like you have to have a bloody good excuse to bring children into films.
Oh yeah, Clive, you're the W.C. Fields of this conversation.
This is actually quite true. I do identify quite a lot with W.C. Fields, I have to say. I was watching. What was I watching recently? It's a Gift. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's so good. His extended kind of set pieces where basically he's just annoyed at life, right, and everyone else is just an irritant. Yeah, no, good stuff. No, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to justify because obviously, children make up a large part of the population, and if you're going to make art that represents life, you have to have children in sometimes or whatever. But I don't know. Sometimes it just feels a little like, yeah, throwing a child into danger feels like something I don't know.
It's like low-hanging fruit.
Sorry?
Yes.
Low-hanging fruit?
Yes, yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it, actually. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it seems a bit but again, I mean, yeah, I think that's more of that's such a personal, subjective thing. I can't really kind of that's just I'm not attempting to push that on anyone else or to even take it serious. It's just a me thing, I think.
But that said, actually, so you have reminded me of the thing the other thing I wanted to say about this, and that is that this film especially, but all of these films, but this one really is a very poor like ad for being a pioneer. Like you watch this movie and like I mean you got this pioneer family and right away the dad dies of like a fever or something like that, right, in the back of their little wagon. And then the mom is desperately trying to bury him but also look after the child. And then the child gets bitten by a rattlesnake. And the fact of the matter was bringing children into, the Wild West, was a tremendously dangerous thing, right? And so in that way, yeah, you could argue that maybe it could be a bit mawkish or a bit, I actually thought that she was quite Drew Barrymore like that little girl, but then obviously little Drew Barrymore, not now. But yeah, but like the reality is it was a dangerous place, right? I wouldn't bring kids into the Wild West. Clive might because he hates children.
Yeah. I'd push them towards snakes.
But yeah, no, I mean, so there is a realism there, funnily enough, even if it's employed for, yeah, obviously to try to pull our heartstrings, but at the same point, yeah, the Wild West was not a place for, I mean, yeah, it was not a safe place to be.
So I think summing up, I suppose, this was quite an interesting little quartet, all told.
Mm-hmm.
And even though obviously you get a whole bunch of films like this clustered together, you're going to have a certain amount of thematic overlap. I mean, however, that said, also, quite a diversity of themes and kind of tones and stuff as well, right? So, like, if someone had told me, for instance, that one of these films had been made in 1913, another one, and they don't automatically jump out as, oh, you can tell these were all made at the same time, if you see what I mean. That's just because we happen to know. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see.
Hart himself is not playing the same role over and over in these four films. It's not like you're like, oh, here he is doing exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
He's not. He's doing different things in each film. He's in some cases very different, in other cases just
and like we said in the case of Jessica Gabriella, for example, not exactly fading into the background, but just becoming another cog in the storytelling machine, as opposed to the bright shine. He's not like a Tom Cruise who has to do a whole bunch of life-threatening stunts to get your attention. He's quite happy to become part of the ensemble, it seems, as well at points. So yeah, I mean, in some ways, very much a progression from our last introductory episode, and now we've got, okay, this is interesting. So I'm quite interested. As this progresses, I'm getting more, which is what I had hoped. We mentioned this in the first episode, that initially I was slightly reticent to begin, but then I was thinking the way Gino framed it in terms of, well, this is like one of the first American action heroes, really, and you're thinking, that's kind of interesting in context. There's got to be a reason for that, right? So let's dive in and see how it goes. And yeah, I'm quite keen to see where we go from here.
And
Same.
the shorts as well, like that, those 20-minute running times, they're perfect, really. I mean, I prefer, brevity, I guess, maybe. But it did make me wonder when. So a feature at this point, we watch features. A feature is more like 50-ish minutes, 60 minutes, right? So at what point, you both know more about film history than I do, I think. At what point do we kind of do films become 90 minutes? That's the kind of like standard length of a movie? Or do we know? Do I need to?
I mean, I don't know.
Well, they were producing like 2-hour, 3-hour epics even back then. Like, you did have like Intolerance that, and Birth of a Nation and other films that came out around this time that, were, more extended length. But, yeah, the typical length would be like your 50 to 60-minute film.
If I had to hazard a guess, I would say maybe it comes in towards the end of the 40s into the 50s. Okay. Maybe as a kind of standardized.
And I'm thinking for like, especially for action films, like for like so, yeah, or action or comedy, like your genre films tended for a long, long time, I think, to clock in around 90 minutes, right?
Right.
And then maybe more prestige or serious dramatic films, historical epics, they might stretch to 2 hours, 3 hours. But for a long, long time, even in the 80s, almost everything that came out I saw in the 80s, if it was an action film, it was like right on the money, 90 minutes.
Well, it splits as well, because if you're talking Hollywood productions, they're definitely going out towards 90 minutes in the 50s. But then if you're talking programmers and stuff like Roger Corman's films and stuff, even to the late 50s, they're still going to be closer to the 60-minute mark, right? So
right. Anyway, I like him short, so I'm enjoying these for that reason as well. I'm enjoying that especially these shorts. I never felt my attention wandering. I never felt myself getting bored, because they're just a nice length.
So yeah, that was I think that was a fun, like, as Clive had said, a fun little like quartet of films that we reviewed tonight. It's interesting that the varying viewpoints, and the varying favorites of the 4 films that we reviewed tonight. Me liking both Bad Buck of Santa Ynez and The Taking of Luke McVane. Nick being partial to The Taking of Luke McVane, and Clive being partial to The Sheriff's Streak of Yellow. This is, again, I'm enjoying going through his filmography and dissecting it, and seeing what you guys think of it, as well as giving my own viewpoints. Just a couple of things here as we wrap up. I'm happy to announce that the William S. Hart Park and Museum has reopened. The town of Santa Clarita, California, has taken over the operations of both the museum and the park, and operations have resumed. So that's a big step up from our previous conversation. So I'm very happy about that. And maybe someday we could rally the forces, and maybe all 3 of us could take a trip there.
That'd be cool. I like to think that actually it's because of us it restarted. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think
we put the energy into the world
for that.
Yeah.
They should fly us out there.
Right. And another thing that I wish to propose to our audience, and I'll put a poll up or something about this, is I'm considering starting a Patreon for this podcast. And the reason why is not only, for our own benefits as we go through these films, but also so that maybe we could fundraise and acquire other films that are currently locked up in film archives, like films like The Man from Nowhere and the other films that we couldn't have access to tonight. I would like to establish a rapport with the film archives and be able to get digital scans of these films so that we can review them. The only way that I think we could do that is through a Patreon type of environment and behind the scenes. Of course, Nick, Clive, we could all work on that together. Of course, there's always the PayPal link that I attach in the show notes. And so yeah. Do you guys have anything else to say as it pertains to these films, or any outgoing messages you wish to provide?
No, just looking forward to continuing to watch the output, I think.
Yeah.
And then when we've finished the films, looking forward to looking or delving into some of the writing as well.
Yes.
Yeah, there's something kind of I quite like not knowing what's coming next. Like I mean, the only William S. Hart film I've ever seen is Tumbleweeds, and that's like another decade. Not of podcasting, I hope, but of before we get there. So it'll be interesting. I kind of have a vague, it's a long time ago since I saw that film, but yeah, interesting to see what comes in the interim.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to Hell's Hinges just because it's showed up in anything I ever read about William S. Hart. That's the film that's constantly the name is thrown around. So I'm excited.
You're going to be disappointed when it turns out it's the rare non-Western where William S. Hart buys a door from IKEA, which is really hard to put up.
Well, as you know, Clive, as a man whose back door has fallen off his house at least
there
once.
we go. Yeah. You may love it. You may.
Then that's the film for me.
Of shoddy workmanship.
But yes, no, I'm as I said, I'm looking forward to this. Is lots of fun, and again, there's no way in a million years I ever would have even known about William S. Hart, and certainly not have decided to do this without you guys. So
right,
good time.
We probably shouldn't belabor the point then. Shall we?
Yeah.
Shall we adios out of here for this episode?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Gino Cuddy, Clive Davis, and Nick Sheehan, and
Mr.
we'd like
Silent
to thank
Clive Davis. Sorry,
Silent Clive Davis.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
He was surprisingly not very silent.
Yes, quite verbose actually in the end. Yeah.
And we'd like to thank you for joining us for another episode of Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and YouTube Music. And thank you for joining us. And there's going to be tons of links in the show notes. And see you next time on the trail. Adios, amigos.
Take care.
God bless you all. And farewell.
This has been a Gino Cuddy podcast production.